When an election to office shall be the selection by the voters of one of their number to assume for a time a public trust, instead of his dedication to the profession of politics, when the holders of the ballot, quickened by a sense of duty, shall avenge truth betrayed and pledges broken, and when the suffrage shall be altogether free and uncorrupted, the full realization of a government by the people will be at hand.
Serving as the 22nd and 24th President of the United States, Grover Cleveland is so far the only president to serve 2 non-consecutive terms in office, as well as the lone Democrat elected in the period between 1861 and 1913. Being a fiscal conservative who opposed high tariffs, free silver, and subsidies to businesses, farmers, or veterans, won him the appeal of other conservatives. But these views hindered Cleveland's ability to handle impending economic crises. Indeed, it was the debate over tariff reduction that was key to his loss of the election of 1888. Republican candidate Benjamin Harrison defeated Cleveland in his first bid for re-election, but Cleveland's First Lady, Frances, was confident about Grover's return to the White House. It is reported that she told a White House staffer,
"Now, Jerry, I want you to take good care of all the furniture and ornaments in the house, for I want to find everything just as it is now when we come back again. We are coming back 4 years from today."
Frances' prediction came true. Harrison and the Congress he led were accused by voters of overspending, and Cleveland was welcomed back into the White House in the election of 1892. The grandson of the 9th president and record holder for shortest term served, William Henry Harrison, Benjamin Harrison, was elected the 23rd president of the United States in the election of 1888. It was later found that members of the Electoral College in New York and Indiana had sold their votes to the Republican Party, tipping the scales in Harrison's favor. Harrison, born in North Bend, Ohio, before settling in Indianapolis, Indiana, at age 21, had served as a brigadier general in the American Civil War and later served in the U.S. Senate for the state of Indiana. As president, Harrison's administration continued to develop a merit-based civil service program, creating the Dependent and Disability Pension Act in 1890. Harrison led what became known as the $1 Billion Congress because of federal spending reaching over $1 billion for the first time. While the spending was viewed as excessive by many of Harrison's opponents, and indeed it was the main issue that lost Harrison his re-election, the Congress was able to admit 6 new states to the Union, as well as passing the Land Revision Act, creating the National Forest Program, with Harrison authorizing the first at Yellowstone, Wyoming. Harrison's administration also championed civil rights. Harrison's attempts to pass the voting rights laws would be the last major attempt to ensure civil rights until the 1930s. Marking the beginning of over a third of a century of Republican presidencies, the 25th President of the United States, William McKinley, spurred economic growth and saw the Americans through to victory in the Spanish-American War. The last president to have served in the Civil War, McKinley ended his career in the Union Army as a brevet major and settled in Ohio to practice law. As president, he continued to push for protective tariffs to ensure domestic manufacturers were not competing with foreign companies, and secured the Gold Standard Act. When Cuba entered into a war with Spain for independence, American sentiment favored the rebels. When the USS Maine was sent to Cuba in an effort to protect American lives and property in the country, an underwater mine destroyed the ship, leading Congress to declare war with Spain. victory over Spain saw that the United States gained all of Spain's territory outside of Africa and Cuba and was promised its independence, although it initially remained under U.S. Army control. McKinley also saw the annexation of Hawaii in 1898, when it became a U.S. territory. On September 6, 1901, McKinley was assassinated by Leon Czolgosz, an anarchist who had lost his job due to the Panic of 1893. He viewed McKinley as an oppressive threat, and as an anarchist, Czolgosz felt his duty to assassinate the president, calling him an enemy of the hard-working people, and later telling the police,
"It was in my heart. There was no escape for me. I could not have conquered it had my life been at stake. There were thousands of people in town on Tuesday. I heard it was President's Day. All those people seemed bowing to the great ruler. I made up my mind to kill that ruler."
Having been named vice president for McKinley's second term, Theodore Roosevelt was then named the 26th President of the United States in the wake of McKinley's assassination. At the time he was sworn in, Roosevelt was the youngest president ever at age 42. An experienced elected official at city, state, and federal levels, including Assistant Secretary of the Navy, Roosevelt was serving in that office when the Spanish-American War broke out. Rather than remain in Washington, Roosevelt chose to fight in Cuba, establishing the Rough Riders, the only one of 3 cavalry regiments raised during the conflict to see battle. Colonel Leonard Wood initially led the men with his second-in-command, Theodore Roosevelt. When Wood left to command the 2nd Cavalry Brigade, leaving Roosevelt in charge, the 1st United States Volunteer Cavalry became known as Roosevelt's Rough Riders. A sickly youth, Roosevelt adopted a hard-living cowboy lifestyle and image and maintained a robust, masculine air throughout his life. Based on his bravery in the Mexican-American War, Roosevelt was elected vice president to William McKinley in 1900. As he assumed the office of the president, Roosevelt tried to move the Republican Party towards progressivism, with measures taken toward trust-busting and business regulation by the federal government. He promoted conservation, being an outdoorsman and a naturalist. Roosevelt was a driving force behind the completion of the Panama Canal. Before he took office, construction had stalled. Roosevelt orchestrated a deal that overtook the construction and bought the equipment and excavations made by the French and continued to develop the canal. Successful completion of the canal would revolutionize shipping routes, and American access to that route would prove to be invaluable. The man who once said, "Speak softly and carry a big stick," helped to negotiate an end to the Russo-Japanese War, for which he won the Nobel Peace Prize. Roosevelt was the first to win the prize while acting as United States President, and only 2 others have so far achieved this honor: Woodrow Wilson in 1919 and Barack Obama in 2009. Because of his political vigor and tenacity in office, Roosevelt became the first vice president to assume office after the death of his president, and to be re-elected for a second term in his own right.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to help us produce more compelling historical content like this, please like, comment below, and share this video with fellow history buffs. And of course, be sure to subscribe to help keep history happening.